We are back after a few day break, guys. I just need to get some things together that you guys will be seeing behind the scenes very shortly. I'm very excited. But with that being said, the title of this video, New or Old Transformers, which are better? This is a topic of discussion within the Transformers fandom that has been raging on for eons. Since probably the early 2010s, I'd say, which was the beginning of quality changing from the 2000s and the 90s to where it's basically at right now. A ton of hollowness, hit or miss on the plastic quality. Sometimes clear plastic use is pretty terrible because of the quality of the clear plastic nowadays. It's really hit or miss. And just overall engineering, parts count, to a lesser extent, gimmicks, because I know gimmicks are like a tricky subject. If it's like something that's not, that doesn't like belong on a Fisher Price toy, then I think it's fine to have gimmicks like mini cons nowadays. I mean, that's still great. Removable missiles, that's more of a feature, not really a gimmick that hinders the figure, and that should be on like a $5 kids gimmick toy, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. They really differentiated all of that nowadays the last like 10, 15 years, which I do like, but it's still something to also factor in with this conversation because, you know, I'm looking at the Cybertron toy line, animated, Energon even, Armada. I mean, you know, I don't know, I kind of see Armada as more of like a kid's gimmick toy line, but at the same time, the amount of detail that they put into those figures in terms of the sculpt and paint sometimes is pretty interesting. Now, I know back then it was a bit of a different mindset for kids' toys, but at the same time, I feel like there was a little bit of an older play at mind there. I mean, obviously it's adults working on these figures, but that was around the time that the fandom of adults, or basically young adults at that time, since the 80s, really started to come into power in terms of Hasbro's mindset in making these figures. It was around the early 2000s we started getting these Transformers conventions like BotCon, I think it was, and it really opened up the eyes of people at Hasbro. To me, at least, that's what it seems like on the outside looking in like 20-something years later, because obviously I was like either a toddler or a baby at that time. I feel like maybe there was a little bit of thought process behind the adult crowd a little bit, and it just grows throughout the years to where we have it now, where we got our collector line in 2006 with classics, and then it continued with Universe and Generations in 2008 and 2010. Looking at it from that point of view, I'm pretty sure at least since the early 2000s, there's been somewhat of a market for adult collectors in mind for Hasbro with these Transformers figures. And seeing that quality kind of shift into something different over the years is really interesting to talk about and study, because, you know, you compare Deluxe Class from, say, I don't know, let's say 2007. Like, let's compare a Deluxe from the first 2007 movie and compare a Deluxe now from either Legacy or Age of the Primes. You compare those two, and there's some similarities. I mean, they may be close in height depending on which figures you choose. Engineering may be similar, but generally, in terms of features, the newer Deluxe Class figures, it's almost non-existent. All they have is either one or two accessories generally, and that's it. Transformations are kind of more so simplified depending on which figure you go for, again, due to budget reasons more than ever nowadays. I mean, back in the day, like, budget constraints, it wasn't as consistent. Like, it seemed like more figures got an evenly spread out budget back in the day than they do now. I don't know if that's just me tripping in the moment recording this video, but that's what it seems like to me, what I'm thinking about with figures nowadays compared to back then. But I don't know, I could be wrong. And that was a $10 figure compared to a $25 figure. Yes, inflation, it's almost 20 years ago, but this is something that I struggle with, you know. When you're spending your hard-earned money on this hobby collector line, it gets to a point where, when do I stop? when do I kind of get things in check here? And you just don't know. I mean, you spend 25, 35, 55, 100, $200 on a figure, or 150 now with the new Titan price point. With that said, there's still a lot of great figures coming out nowadays, especially in Age of the Primes Wave 1. I want to get Fallen, Red Alert. That Wasp repaint looks great. So Hasbro's still making great figures. But when you get down to the technical side of things, it's crazy to see where the toy lines have gone, especially when we're looking at the cartoon toy lines. Cybertron 2005, that toy line was basically a Generations line, just with some Cyberplanet key gimmicks that you still see in regular Generations to this day. They just gutted the spring-loaded engineering. It's still the same stuff, So comparing something like the Cybertron 2005 toy line to Cyberverse, R80 2015, Earthspark, and possibly the upcoming Cyberworld, it's night and day. You compare it with animated, again, night and day. Energon, Armada even. Even though Armada was heavily gimmick-based, barely any articulation, transformations that are super, super simple, you still had that level of detail and intricacy that it felt like you were getting something a bit more premium. But I don't know, maybe that's just me looking back 20-some years later with the crap that we get now with these new cartoon toy lines, and it just seeming so much better back then with Armada. Because back then, it probably just seemed like gimmick toys and nothing really too special, because there wasn't really the amount of cuts and constraints that we see nowadays on mainline figures. So, I don't know, I could be wrong. Maybe that's just me with future hindsight, I guess. And even the size classes, they were slightly different names compared to now, but the size classes are the same as the Collector's Generations line. It's just weird, man. They treat the new cartoons so low quality in terms of the figures they make. They could be making great deluxe class Voyager and leader class figures off of these designs, and I probably would get them if they were done just as good as the regular Generation stuff that we've been getting the last 15 years. That would be pretty freaking amazing to me. So, I don't know, it just seems obvious to me to just do better on those types of figures. Comparing figure to figure, updates from previous figures and characters over the years that we get nowadays, it really is a figure-by-figure basis. It's not something that you could just generally speak out of, because there's some deluxe figures that get the quality of a freaking Voyager class from 2009 or something, and then there's some that looks like that are borderline kids toy line stuff. It's just crazy, But if I were to say it depends on the figure, with new or old, whatever you want to buy and decide to get, I don't feel like there's truly one side to this. I really do feel like it depends on what example you're throwing out there, honestly. Because there's a lot of trash old figures nowadays compared to today's standards. That's just how it is. With all the budget cuts even, there's still been a lot of strides in toy design, especially for Transformers over the last 5-10 years. With all that being said, I really do feel like it comes down to the figure you're comparing it to and where we're at right now in terms of how the engineering is. Because again, there's some trash new figures, some amazing new figures, some trash old figures, some amazing old figures that still hold up till this day and probably will not be topped by a modern day update unless if it's like a Commander class, Titan class, or HasLab release. But yeah, guys, let me know down in the comments below. How do y'all feel about this topic in the community the last 10, 15, 20 years about new figures being better than old, or old figures being better than new figures? All my social medias are linked down below, including my email if you guys want to hit me up about business inquiries, or if you want to message me about whatever, or if you want to commission a diorama from me, because I make dioramas for people for their stop motions, photography, or irregular display shelves in your homes. You can either hit me up on any of my social media accounts, or you can just email me and we can work out a deal. But yeah, guys, thank you for watching this video. Catch y'all in the next one. Bye!